skyrocket? Would you join hands with competition? And if ambition comes at a cost of relationships, how do you build your safety net and deal with the entrepreneurial ego? It's a rare privilege to interact with those who've created history. Welcome to the Trailblazers edition of Voice of Achievers with me, Yashika. It's an honor to welcome Joseph William Foster, the co-founder of Reebok. Born into the J.W. Foster family business, Joe and his brother Jeff rebelled against odds and set up Mercury Sports Footwear, which after 18 months was to become Reebok. The brand as we know it was built brick by brick. Joe recounts those early days of building Reebok and scaling it to a $4 billion business, overtaking Adidas and Nike to becoming the #1 sports shoe brand. We're also joined by Julie Foster, the foil and the solid pillar in the form of a partner to the enthusiastic Joe. Love and loneliness, equal partnerships and romance, ambition and persuasion. There's lots to soak in. So let's dive in and listen to the Shoemaker story, the Reebok story with Joe and Julie Foster. Such a pleasure to have you, Joe.
Oh, it's indeed a pleasure to meet you again.
Once again.
Yes, I know we do travel, and we did travel into India, and we had a few speaking events. We did indeed, and we enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I did become sick at that occasion and didn't manage to do the tourist part. But we're going to come back. We'll have to come back and get on with the tourist part again. But yes. Thank you for the invitation.
Looking forward to having you then. But, Joe, going back to the entrepreneurial days, when young entrepreneurs come together with a vision to form a company, especially where seasoned players already exist in the business, in your case, you were two young dreamers when the Nikes and the Pumas already out there in the world. So when you're a newbie and seasoned players exist, how do you build vision at scale and actually navigate the anxiety and the self-doubt that comes with, starting afresh?
Well, I think you touched on it in the introduction, the fact that we left the parent company, J.W. Foster, to set up our own new company. And there's a reason. So it's that reason that we didn't set up the company to become #1. The first thing we thought about was J.W. Foster. My grandfather set up J.W. Foster in 1895. It's a long time ago, and my grandfather died before I was born, but his sons, my father and uncle, they took on running the company. Unfortunately, they didn't get on together at all. They just didn't. They didn't talk to each other. They fought each other more than talk to each other. A bit like Adi Dassler and Rudy Dassler. Adi Dassler was Adidas, and Rudy Dassler, they just used to fight. And Rudy left the company and he set up Puma.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with J.W. Foster, my father and uncle, they just kept fighting. They kept feuding. And the result of that was the company was going down. Jeff worked in the company from being 14 years old. I didn't start until I was 17. And for 1 year before, both Jeff and I went to national service. In those days, we're talking 1953, is it? But 1953, something like, yes, 1953. And we both had to do national service following World War II. So, and that was 2 years. So we left the company for 2 years. And, when you leave home, you leave, your mother's no longer there, your meals are no longer ready, you've got to look after yourself. And it does change your mind quite a bit. You start to think, yes, well, okay, I can do this differently. So after 2 years, when Jeff and myself, we came back to the family company, and we came back to a failing company. It was failing. they were doing nothing. There were no new designs, no
Innovation.
new ideas, no salespeople, and the company was going down. And I remember saying to my father, "Dad, come on, we have to change. We have to do something. You know, we need to get salesmen. We need to expand. We need to get ideas." And his only answer was, "Joe, when I'm gone and your uncle's gone, this company will be yours, and you can do what you like with it."
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is, look, Dad. Number one, we don't want you to go. That's that's not our plan. We don't want you to go. We'd love you to live as long as ever, whatever. But this company will be dead long before you are. This company is dying. Didn't make any difference. It was like, well, don't bother. So, I mean, and I didn't just talk to him once. I talked to him a few times, and it made no difference. And essentially what happened is that Jeff and myself, we decided, Jeff was 25, I was 23. If we're going to do anything, we have to do it ourselves. We have to
Right.
go, because our father isn't going to do anything. They're not going to move. They kept on with it. And so we did. So at 23 and 25, we left the company. And as you say, we set up our own small company, Mercury Sports Footwear. So, you know, with all the big men around, yes, Nike were not big in those days, but Puma and Adidas were. Adidas in
Right.
particular. And when we left, by that time, Adidas had really taken the football market in the UK.
Right.
They'd taken the football market. There was no space for us there at all. And we didn't really want to compete with J.W. Foster, who were very well known in athletics, track and field, very well known. So we started with cycling. Jeff was a cyclist, and so we started with that. And we had some good representatives. We had salesmen on the road, and we did quite nicely with cycling. In particular, we had one man in London, and he used to send us lots of orders. Unfortunately, I think we've been with him 12, 18 months when the orders stopped. Suddenly they stopped. And it was 2 weeks later, because we didn't have computers. We didn't have mobile phones, and even telephones. We didn't have a telephone number for him. So we had to just write letters. Everything came by post. And it was 2 weeks after his orders had finished that his landlady, he was living in London, he was a Scotsman living in London, and his landlady said, do you owe Mr. I've forgotten his name now, do you owe me any money? And okay, and the letter continued, said, because he was killed 2 weeks ago in a car accident.
Oh.
And that more or less killed our cycle business because he was such a good salesman that he could send us lots and lots of orders. But when he died, our cycle business almost died with him. We still kept some cycle business, but by that time we'd started to move into track and field and running, mainly because, as we predicted, the J.W. Foster brand went out of business. That was it. Because they were so near to having to end the business when we were there, but eventually they ended the business. So we moved on. We're back into running, into track and field.
But was it hard, Joe, to sort of navigate that, self-doubt or anxiety, if you must, because you were two young people in the industry and in a space where you had, the big players?
Well, we were 23 and 25. What can go wrong? What can go wrong when you... No, you don't see problems. We saw ourselves as somebody trying to work our way into a business. We knew the Foster business, so we knew how to make the product.
Right.
And we knew a lot of people in the business, so we knew we would pick up something. But what we did do is that Jeff was an athlete. He loved running. He loved cycling. I played badminton, and we didn't make badminton shoes. We never made badminton shoes, but
Right.
but Jeff was very close to all the runners and all the cyclists. So within a within a 50-mile radius of our factory, everybody knew us, and they came to us, and we just went to them. We went to the events. We went selling at the events. So we knew we sort of had some customers that, and we had a small business. But then really it was a question of looking for white space.
Hmm.
We were thinking, where do we go next? Because you're quite right. How do you compete with Adidas and Puma in football and in track and field? In fact, they were quite big in track and field. But locally, we had orienteering. That's running on the mountains. We had fell running. We had cross country. And we also had rugby league.
Right.
And rugby league is something in the north of England. Rugby union is more to the south, but rugby league. So we had these white spaces that we could go, we could visit the people.
Right.
And there's
Build a
quite a bit
niche.
yeah, we could visit the teams. We could go, we could talk to them. Adidas, they were in Germany. They had to go through sports stores, the sports shops, if they wanted to buy Adidas, whereas we could go direct. And then there was a question saying, well, how do we grow now? How do we grow? Because taking my own advice, which I tried to give to my father, I decided that I would go out there and try to sell, go to the sports stores. So I went to the sports stores selling my products, and I managed okay, but nothing fantastic. And I would go into some sports stores and I'd say I'm Reebok, and the buyer or the owner, who was probably the same man, he was probably the owner, he would say to me, who are Reebok? Who's Reebok?
Yeah.
And I'd show him the shoes, the product. Oh, quite nice. That's nice. That's good. Yeah, I like that product. It's fine. But, and he'd look up at his shelf and he said, look, I've got Adidas and I've got Dunlop. Why do I need Reebok?
Yeah.
And that's that question. I had to think about that because he didn't need Reebok. People that our customers were the athletes. He was in between. He was just a retailer. And if the athlete didn't come to ask him for Reebok, he wouldn't stock Reebok.
Absolutely.
So, okay. And it really occurred to me that our customer was the runner, the cyclist. Those were our customers. They're the ones that needed Reebok, or we had to make them need Reebok. And we were close to them. But we're going back now to 1960, early in 1960s. And in those days, the 3As, the Amateur Athletic Association in the UK, they were very big, very strong, and it was all amateur in those days. So the Amateur Athletic Association, they produced a handbook. And in the handbook, between 300 and 400 clubs affiliated to the 3As, all these clubs. In this handbook, there was the name and address of every secretary of every club in the country. Okay, not very difficult. Send a letter. So I wrote a letter to every secretary offering them 15% off, and if they wanted to buy the product. And if anybody in the club wished to become an agent, then they could have the 15% and make some money. From the first letters, I got about 100 agents. Which I didn't expect that quickly, but I got 100 agents. And I think a month later, when I sort of looked at all this and people who hadn't responded, I sent another letter. In the end, I ended up with about 250 to 300 agents. Great.
Beautiful.
So this was how we were growing our business, or these days, scaling your business. We were scaling our business, which was really good. And at that time, then those sports retailers, the sports stores who said, why do I need Reebok? They start phoning me. They come on the telephone and say, you're supplying our local club direct and you're giving them a discount. If you stop doing that, we will stock your product. I was tempted, but I said no. You can still sell my product, and you will get it at wholesale price, which is a lot cheaper than 15% off. It's almost half the price. You will get it at
Lovely.
wholesale. Yeah. And we will advertise that you are a stockist.
Mm-hmm.
We're not stopping. If anybody, the agent still wants to sell the product, then we'll stay with them. About 90% of the sports stores agreed. They were quite happy. They agreed. Because I did say this is my way of marketing.
This is beautiful. This actually brings me joy that a large part of your career has involved sales, and more so, I mean, I wouldn't call it sales, I would call it persuasion. Because from dealers to distributors to team members to partners and even brand ambassadors, there has always been some sort of persuasion that you have had to do as part of building this business. Talk to us about the art of persuasion, Joe. Is it innate, and how much of it did you develop?
Well, Jeff and I, we knew what had happened to my father and uncle, how they just fought. So we came to an arrangement. Jeff, he loved the factory. He loved making shoes. I didn't. And I found it repetitive. That's okay. But I didn't particularly. I could design shoes, and I did design most of our shoes. But it was a matter of Jeff saying, "Okay, I'll look after the factory. You do everything else."
Yeah.
So what I had to do was to find the pulse. Find that pulse. Give it a heart. And so that was my job, to make people believe in us,
Right.
and become excited. We're not a product. We are something else. We're more than a product. We're something that you need. You're part of us. So I was trying getting people to feel they were part of Reebok, and they did. On Saturdays, when really we had no workers there, so many athletes used to come to the factory, just come down to talk about running, talk about what's next, to do some training. They come to change and go out training. And, if there was, if we needed some electrical work doing, some wires put in, or even some joinery, there was always amongst the people that came, there were electricians, there were joiners, there were builders, and they would do work for us. So we worked like a community. And that just was so infectious that it's throughout the whole, I think, of the UK, we became known as the running shoe company. Yeah. So that was our space. We'd made that space. But then I'm thinking, well, Adidas is too big in football. We don't have the money to take that market. We did put some football boots out there, and we sold one or two, but we were not going to make a big impression. We were not. So I'm thinking, what should we do? And for me, we needed a bigger running market, and that bigger running market was America. Yeah. In America, they have so many colleges, so many universities, and each college and university, they have a coach, and coach is a god. Yeah. Coach is God in those places. Everybody believes in coach. That's a big market. Even J.W. Foster's, before they closed down, they had a contract with Yale University. It was Bob Jean-Jacques and Frank Ryan. They were the two head coaches. And they bought 200 pairs a month, and they would sell them on to other universities. So they had a small business doing that. But I knew that was a big business, really. It was a big country. And so we're talking in the late 60s, 1968. I'd been talking to the family about going to America, but the family said, no, it's too expensive. Yeah, we can't afford that. But fortunately, and I'm reading a magazine called, I think it's Eurosport. And in the magazine, the British government were advertising, and they wanted us to export. And they wanted us in particular to export to America. So they, in this advert, they said, look, we'll pay for you a stand at the NSGA show. That's the National Sporting Goods of America. And that's in Chicago. We'll pay for you a stand. We will also pay for your return airfare, and we'll pay for 50% of your hotel bill and expenses whilst you're out there.
Right.
I had no problem with the family. The family were, it's not going to cost us money, you can go. So in 1968, I made my first trip to America. I went with a friend, and I don't know why we did this, since the government were paying for our return airfare. We actually decided to take 2 weeks, and that was a cheaper airfare to take 2 weeks, because the longer you stayed, the less the fare. I don't know why in those days, but that's how it happened. So we took this ticket for 2 weeks, and we decided to go to New York first, because the show was in Chicago. So we went to New York. First time we'd been to New York. My friend Bob, he was in the outdoor business. So he looked at some outdoor stores. I looked at the sports stores and see what product was on the shelf and see what they were doing. And then we went on to Chicago, and the fair itself took 4 days. And yes, a lot of people, a lot of Americans came up and said, "Oh, love your product, Joe. I really love your product. And where do we get this from?" Yeah. And I said, "Well, from England." And they're looking at me, "Is that New England?"
Yeah.
No, not New England. England, across, near London. Near London, yes, yeah. Near London. That's the one. Unfortunately, it's a bit tricky. Importation into the USA was a bit tricky in those days. You got to go through a lot of stuff. And
did that take persuasion too, to get into the USA market, because it was a tricky market?
Well, I mean, the problem with that is that I realized that I needed to find a distributor. I needed someone who would take the bulk of product. The people that were coming to see us were retailers. They had sports stores, they had shops, and so they may have wanted, say, 50 pairs throughout a season, and for that it wasn't something they would go for. So I needed a distributor. My friend Bob, he had an outdoor store in the UK, and we were making a boot for him, a climbing boot. He did get some sales at that point. So yes, since he got some sales, we got some production. So we got those boots to make for him. But there was no way that I could get into the American market unless I had a distributor.
Right.
Okay, so I went successive years. From 1968, I continued to go there. And when did I get into America? 1979. 11 years.
Yeah.
11 years.
That's a hell amount of patience. Yeah.
Yeah. During that 11 years, I had about 6 distributors. I tried to work with 6 people, and they all failed.
Yeah.
They all failed. It didn't work. In fact, one of the guys I worked with, we worked for 4 years together, and still we couldn't get into the market. So we're doing quite nicely in the UK, and we were doing some exports in different ways, small, but we were going. But 1979. Now, during the 70s, the running market in America just expanded, just grew. Fantastic. By 1975, you think there's 350 million people in America. About 10% were actually going out there training, running in events. About 35 million going running. Yeah. And that's a big sum. That's a lot of people running.
Yeah.
They all needed shoes. And during the 70s, in fact, it started in late 60s, a magazine, there's a guy called Bob Anson. He brought out a magazine called Runner's World.
Great.
And in the late 60s, it was just a single A4 sheet of paper. That's all it was, Runner's World. By 1975, it was 60 pages, full color, beautiful, glossy magazine. And it told everybody where the next race was, whether it was a 5K, 10K, half marathon. So it listed down where they could go for events, and it also gave the results. So you got a page of the first 100 finishers, and so everybody bought this magazine. Of course, a lot of the footwear brands advertised in there, and we did as well. We advertised in there,
You
but
clearly had your own sense of marketing at that point in time, I must say.
yeah, but we were still quite small. And of
Right,
course, this magazine was growing, so the advertising cost was going up.
right.
So it became quite expensive to advertise in the magazine. However, Bob Anderson, in his wisdom, probably in 1976, he decided to tell everybody in America which is the number one shoe to buy. And yes, so he did this, whatever they did to test these shoes. But of course, it came out as Nike. Nike were the best shoes. Well, you've got 35 million people running, and in America, if something is new, they want it.
Right,
About 10%, about 3.5 million, maybe more, wanted that shoe.
right.
Unfortunately, Phil Knight of Nike, he was importing his shoes from Japan, and then he started from Asia, but he couldn't get the product.
Right.
You could just turn that number on. So the retail trade they just couldn't get the product. Customers are going in saying, "I want this Nike shoe." We haven't got it.
Yeah.
And so the retail trade were really annoyed with this. So the next year, Bob Anderson, in his wisdom, he decided there was another shoe was number one. I can't tell. I don't know which it was, whether it was New Balance, Brooks, Saucony, Etonic. I don't know which it was, but it certainly wasn't Reebok. And the same thing happened. The demand was there, the product couldn't happen. So the third year you tried this, I think it was probably 70, 78. He changed it to star ratings.
Okay.
Instead of saying this is the number one shoe, all the shoes that they tested would be given a star rating.
Right.
5 stars would be at the top. And it was at that point that I thought, I'm sure we can make a 5-star shoe.
Right.
We're in the trade, we're in the business. We know everything that is going on, what the latest trends are. So I'm in Chicago again in February. It's very cold in Chicago in February, very cold. I'm in Chicago, February 1979. And I have our attempt at the 5-star shoe. I have that on sale. Now, by this time, running was getting so big that everybody wanted to get into the running shoe business. And came to the stand, and Kmart said, we want 25,000 pairs. But we need a better price.
Yeah.
There are two things. I knew that we would never make the volumes. Our factory was quite small. 25,000 per would take us 6 months.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work. So a friend of mine who worked at Bata, and I think you know Bata in India. You know
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. They were all around the world. They were in Europe and in the UK. They're no longer in Europe or the UK. They're no longer in America. They're in South America, in Latin America, and in India. They're big still. Yeah. But they had a factory in England at Tilbury, and a good friend of mine, he'd just joined them, and he was setting up the sports branch, the sports footwear branch. So he said, "Joe, if you want any help with volume, we'll help you." Okay, that's great. Yes, they could make the volume. Unfortunately, they couldn't meet the price that Kmart would want.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to be Korea. That had to be Asia. Fortunately, in thinking about making a 5-star shoe, I had made arrangements to meet up with the agent for a Korean factory. So at this point, when Kmart said we'd like 25,000 pairs at a better price, I knew we could meet that. Yeah, that's okay. So it was towards the end of the show, though, that I met another guy, Paul Feynman. Paul Feynman was running Boston Camping. Boston Camping was an outdoor wholesale company. And I think he'd been doing that for about 10 years. He and his brother-in-law, they ran the company. And it was pretty obvious that he was fed up with that business, with the outdoor business, selling tents and fishing lines and goodness knows what. And he came on the stand and we're talking about footwear. And he said, Joe, if you get a 5-star shoe, I'll be your distributor.
Nice.
This wasn't the first one. I'd had 6 before, but now things were different. If we got a 5-star shoe, that would be the best promotion we could get in Runner's World. 5-star shoe. Okay. This is February, and the shoe edition doesn't come out until August. So I think it was May. I went back into America in May, and I went to see Kmart. Saw them, and yes, they were quite interested in the 25,000 pairs, and I got a price for them. But I'm thinking they're too big. They're just so big as a distributor that if they didn't sell enough of my product in the square footage they would give us, that would be my first and last order. So whilst that was good and okay, I decided to go along to Boston to have a word with Paul. So I met Paul. I could talk to Paul.
Yeah.
You know, we more or less talked the same language. This wasn't just a buyer. He was interested in more than just being a buyer. So that's great. And I met his brother and his brother-in-law and saw the setup, nice little setup there, Boston Camping. That'd be great. Yeah, they'd probably do a good job for us. So I went back. Last week in July of 1979, that's when the shoe edition would be out. I phoned Paul Feynman.
Yeah.
Said, Paul, can you go down to the local kiosk, see if the Runner's World's on the shelf? 1 hour later, he came back. He said, Joe, Aztec, you've got your 5 stars. Oh, that was it. That was one of those moments, one of those fantastic moments. He said, but also your Midas, which was a racing shoe, and Inca, which was a spike track shoe, they also got 5 stars. So we had 3 5 stars, and that's got us into America.
And this actually brings me to one of the most interesting things you've done, and you've also talked about it, which is to join hands with competition, Joe. When it comes to hitting scale, talk to us about, you've never shied from saying that, okay, when it comes to achieving scale, we don't mind. The idea is that Reebok must grow and we must be able to build the brand at scale. Talk to us about the fine lines of building at scale while keeping a close watch on competition and eventually actually letting go of the so-called entrepreneurial ego and building collaboratively.
Well, I think that it was a complete change of the business to get into America and to get a 5-star shoe, a complete change. Up until then, we'd relied upon our own small manufacturing plant, and that was good, but now we needed a lot of product and we needed a better price. So it was obvious now that whilst marketing had been very important to us, we now became a marketing company.
Yeah.
We're no longer a manufacturing company. That was going to be a very small part of it. So we turned to becoming a marketing company, and it's how you look at the world as a marketing company. Production is separate from brand.
Right.
Now we become brand, and the brand is Reebok. So it all it became then was, how do we sell Reebok
Absolutely.
as a brand? And the 5 stars had given us the opportunity to get into America and barter. They had given us the opportunity, and they did actually make 20,000 pairs for us. It wasn't a successful arrangement with them, but they gave us the opportunity to meet those initial orders that we got before eventually we went to Korea. And going to Korea, I mean, it was amazing because they could make really good product, but they can make it at about 1/3 of the price that we could make it at in the UK. So this is so different. And by that time, I decided I'd better go back and have a look at Paul Fireman now. He's going to become our distributor. And he had just set up Reebok USA Incorporated. And I went back there. And it's funny because Paul met me at the airport. Paul picked me up at the airport. And we went to a totally different office to the Boston camping. And okay, I said, "What are you doing, Paul? Are you running this a totally separate business? Is it?" And he said, "No, we've closed Boston camping." They actually shut the company down, and he became Reebok. His brother, he went off to make wallets, and his brother-in-law, he opened a second-hand car lot. So this totally, which I wondered at the time. I thought, well, I did sort of think this would be a bolt-on business to the existing one, but no, they went separate, which in the end turned out very well because Paul Fireman did a fantastic job.
Right.
And so now we're looking, we're becoming global, because not only did I see America as the big market, the market where we could get into and sell, I also saw it as the market that people look to. People were looking at that market. And I picked that up from the NSGA show. I used to go to the NSGA show in Chicago, and you would meet people from around the world. A lot of people came in to see what was happening in America. So I recognized the fact that if we got into the American market,
you had to become bigger.
Yes. All of a sudden, we're becoming global. So now we're on the American market. But but running wasn't to become the product that took Reebok to the top. We're doing nicely. Our product is doing very nicely in America, and we have we have technical reps all over. We had this technical rep, Arnold Martinez. Arnold Martinez was a technical rep in Los Angeles, and his wife Frankie, she was going to aerobic classes. And she was coming back and saying, and Arnold was saying, "What are you doing?" Because they were full of it. Her and her friends were really thought, "Oh, yeah, we enjoy this."
Well, a niche was born there.
Right.
The niche of women aerobic shoes were born there.
Oh, indeed. Yes. Apparently, aerobics had been going for some time, but had not really caught on. Now it had caught on to becoming something that women were enjoying. And so Arnold said, "What are you doing?" And she said, we're doing aerobics. And he said, "What's aerobics?" I said, "We're exercising to music." Right. Okay. Well, Arnold said, "Well, do you mind if I come down to your next class?" "No, come along." So Arnold went to the next class, and there's about 30 women there. And this is the instructor. The instructor's wearing a pair of sneakers. And half the class are wearing sneakers, the other half don't have any shoes on. And Arnold sort of thought of this and thought, I think we think the sneaker was a New Balance. But and Arnold is thinking, why don't we make a shoe
for women?
For aerobics. For aerobics, and specifically for women. On a woman's last, which was smaller, on a woman's, and just in women's sizes. That was his idea. And also make it with glove leather.
One of the interesting things about Reebok and about the business is you finding the right partner in Jeff. When we're looking at finding the right co-founder, and you've talked about this quite a bit about, having to, once Jeff moved on in life and, Jeff was no more, that's when, it became very difficult for you to sort of run the factory and the other aspects that you were actually looking into. How do you find the right co-founder, the right partner, and how should you bring them aboard? Because I sense that both Jeff and you have sort of complementary skills.
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, being brothers, there was in itself that's a problem, and it's a good thing. The problem was that we had seen my father and uncle. We knew about Addy and Rudy Dassler. We knew about how difficult that is. You're 50-50 in a company. So if you start disagreeing, the company goes down. We never had a bad word. We never fell out.
Right.
And I'm sure I did a lot of stupid things in my market. I'm sure I was stupid at doing things. But Jeff never bothered. So I think providing the orders came in and we had a lot of work for the factory. And even then, I know we went through some desperate times,
Yeah.
but still, Jeff was always there. And the unfortunate thing is that Jeff did die in 1980,
Right.
just when we'd got the 5 stars,
Yeah.
just when we'd broken the market. He never saw it. He never saw that happen. But we just got in with that 5-star shoe. And I mean, that was a tragic blow because as it happened, I went out to Korea. I took a flight and went out to Korea to see the factories and whatever. That would have been Jeff's job.
Yeah.
Jeff would have gone to take the production and go to make sure the production was right. As I said, we worked with barter and it didn't work properly. If Jeff had been alive, he would have done working with barter. He would have gone down there and made sure they did exactly.
What they should have done.
Reproduced the shoe exactly what they should have done. But unfortunately, I had to rely upon people at barter to copy the product, to make sure that they made the product right. They didn't. They put it through time and motion. Time and motion meant, can we change something to make it easier?
Right.
And they did. They changed a few things to make it easier. And whilst they made it easier, that made sure that they could make it cheaper, but it wasn't the same product. And so that was one of the big problems that Jeff died. Yeah, unfortunately. So yes, the within the factory itself, on the production side of it, we had somebody who was a very good foreman, somebody who could handle that. That was okay. And then I needed to bring somebody in, and I brought a girl in who was very straight. She could run the office.
Mm-hmm.
She could run all the financials, and between her and the guy on the floor, they could organize what materials they need, so they could organize the materials. And then I brought in another guy who was actually from Barter, to do the designing. So it took me 3 people.
Yeah. To replace that one. Yeah.
3 people to replace Jeff, which was not easy. And it still didn't replace exactly what he should have done, because Jeff would then, he would have done the, gone to Korea, he would have taken the product to Korea. So he would have done that. He would have done a few things. I think he would probably have to bring in somebody else into the factory to look after a lot of the factories, whilst he moved with me into the bigger job, into the bigger scene.
True. Joe, how should young, you said you brought in 3 people to sort of, and they still couldn't replace Jeff. How should young entrepreneurs deal with senior people or people that they may hire or partner with who may be more experienced or older than them? And how do you sort of get work done as a young entrepreneur?
As a young entrepreneur, I think your skill has to be to work with people.
Yeah.
No matter where I go and who I talk with, it's to do with teamwork. It's to do with bringing people into a team. And I think that is something that I don't say we gained that because Jeff died, but it so happened that we built more of a team.
Right.
So we built more people into it who respected each other, and we also built them into understand we're now a brand. We're now Reebok, and it's make them feel part of it. They were not there just to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning and go home at 5 p.m. and they've done a job and they forget it. No, this was 24/7. You lived, you breathe, you are part of something. And I think building a brand is that you build a whole team, and all these people form that whatever that triangle, form that circle. They form the company. So it's not just one person, and I think the entrepreneur. Certainly in my time when you're making a product, I think today where so much is done on computers. There's so much computer. Yeah, you probably do need teams in different ways. But certainly at that time, we needed a team that all believed in Reebok, that believed that this is what they were doing, and that I think builds the strength of a brand.
Which actually brings me, Joe, to this wonderful, because you've been very vocal about the fact that it was the team members, it was the family of Reebok that actually built the brand, and that actually built the business at the scale that it is. The traditional entrepreneurial debate is one between profit and purpose. As a leader, how did you navigate and build that with Reebok, since you've always envisioned scale?
Well, I think again that you need different skills, and within that skill you have to have somebody who looks after the money. You have to have a chief executive and a chief operating officer, and also you need the skills of the accountant. So somebody who looks after a CFO, he's got to be there. But again, it's bringing these people in who not just run money, but also understand the brand. And I'm talking probably at a certain size. I think when you get really big, really big, you lose a bit of that. Trying to keep that sort of people who are there for the brand, not just for their expertise, but you need those expertise, you need those skills. And if you can join those skills in with having them as part of your brand, they're not just a lawyer, they're not just an accountant, they are Reebok's accountants, they're Reebok's legal team. Yeah. So to try and build everybody as part of a team, and I think an entrepreneur has got to be able to do that. I don't think an entrepreneur is a person who should be known as the boss who tells everybody what to do. He should be the listener. He should be the one who listens and encourages, gets his team to tell him what we need. And if the team tells you what they need, you know that they're part of it. You know that they're listening. They're not just looking at numbers. They're not just looking at little bits of paper. They know what that team needs, what that brand needs, and I think that helps tremendously. Not only does it help because people are enjoying that, and for me, it is the most important thing is to have some fun. And
I know you've said this so many times that it's really important to have some fun. But at the same time, Joe, you've been very vocal about the fact that with entrepreneurship came immense loneliness of sorts. You've not shied away from talking about it, that with immense ambition and aspiration, there did come some kind of loneliness. Yet you still try to keep, that safety net surrounding you, your family, your friends. In a hyper digital age, like we just talked about, we have very few real relationships. How can young leaders and entrepreneurs build a support system while not letting go of that ambition that they may have?
I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. I think that is being able to separate yourself from certain points. That there's a certain area where people recognize you, that your decision is the decision, and for that you can't be sharing too many things.
Right.
You got to have that little bit of step sideways. It's something that is a little bit, it's not shared with everybody.
Yeah.
You want everybody to be part of, and you want everybody to be able to come to you to talk. But the ultimate decision is yours.
Yeah.
And not only is that a responsibility, it's also why you are there. It's also what you want. It's part of your makeup. Yeah, being in that position, or being in a position where you work for somebody else, that's the difference. The entrepreneur knows what he's looking for, but he also knows that he needs a team, and to get a team, he has to make them believe. He has to make them understand that this is what you need. And we were not shy. Certainly, I wasn't shy of, if somebody didn't fit, I would suggest they moved on.
Right.
If we, what I didn't like was egos.
Yeah.
If somebody came in with an ego, and it all became I am, no, we are. This is the team.
Right.
There's no I in team. That's it. We're a team, and we work as a team, and we take decisions as a team. It's just that, I like people who would come and they'd say, can I do this? Or I've got this idea. I say, fine. You work on it, you do it, and only come to me if you've got 2 ways to go, and you'd like a little bit of advice on whether it's that way or should I go that way. Don't bring me your problems, bring me your answers. Because if they think it out themselves, and I'd be there just to support and say, okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. If they wanted that little bit of confidence, but really, your team has to make the decisions. They have to be the ones that can really drive your company forward, and so they have to believe in brand. They have to believe it. So, employing people, it can be a difficult job, but at the top, if you get the right people, then your job becomes easier, because you can't tell everybody, you can't be in control of everybody. You've just got to have a team which really, really works together, really is keen, and wants to see what you want to see. They want to be part of it. And I think making them part of it and feeling that they've got control, feeling that they look after this.
Yeah.
And that ownership, I think that ownership is so important to people in the team. The entrepreneur, I don't think ownership is really what really drives or motivates an entrepreneur. I think it's succeeding in doing something that is in their head and in their psyche, in their dreams. It's that success to make. It was always about Reebok. Nobody knew Joe Foster. Who was Joe Foster? It was about Reebok. Everything. I never wanted Reebok diluted. The only reason now that we're pushing Joe Foster is because of the book. We have a book, and it's a different mission to sell the book.
But the very interesting part is that, Joe, you build a business brick by brick, relationship by relationship, with so much effort, so much time, and one day it's time to walk away. It takes courage, Joe, to walk away from what you've built so many years together, so many people, minds, and hearts together. When is the right time to let go, to sell your business, or hit the pause button?
Well, I think it all depends on what you're looking at. And if you're looking at a brand and you're looking at opportunities, sometimes ownership didn't mean that much to me. What meant to me was, are we being successful?
Yeah.
And do you count success by selling for a lot of money, or do you count success by seeing something grow, seeing something become
Legendary?
almost a household name? So and that for me was something that and seeing the people enjoy it, and seeing other people enjoy the fact that, yeah, we are Reebok, and having some of those experiences, having fun, as I've said. Not every day can be fun.
Yeah.
So some days are difficult.
Yeah.
But in general, what you have to do is to work towards having fun, because if you're not having fun, you'll find it very difficult to succeed if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying it, and making sure other people enjoy it as well. I mean, that is so important that everybody comes along and as a part of this fun. So when there's a time to step back, I think you can recognize that. For me, it was the fact that okay, I was only 55, but this I thought this is a nice step back, because I thought younger people should come in. Younger people should be running this. This is the time. As you get a bit older, we got computers. Computers were not there in my time, so building the business in my time was a lot different than it is now. And I think there are a tremendous amount of opportunities now, because you sit in India, I'm here now in the Atlantic Ocean on an island, and this is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to our meeting, we just had two other meetings, just the same thing, and I think they were from the UK. Where was the other one from? And one in Switzerland. So, now we can do this business so differently. It is, we can connect, and what Julie and I have found since writing the book, our connectivity is incredible.
That actually brings me. Could we also have Julie on the on camera? Would that be possible?
Oh, yes. Can we have Julie on camera? Yes, she's.
I'd like to. There's a question about partnership that I'd like to ask.
Okay, she's coming. This is.
Hey, this is lovely, and I've seen the both of you attend events together. Julie, what does it take for partners to become true companions and sounding boards and actually really grow together?
I think there has to be sort of an innate compatibility,
right?
And that is just there. And I don't think you can make it work. I also think one of my big things is you have to learn to have a zipper on your mouth.
Know when to speak.
You have to know when to zip this closed and not speak, and that from both sides, And I think most of it is the innate compatibility, because if you we travel all the time together, and we spend so much time together, that if you weren't innately compatible, you would kill each other. you would never make it work. And I think you also have to have fun together. I think that's the thing, and be empathetic of each other. I think empathy for each other is a big key factor as well.
How wonderful is that? Also, perhaps providing that space, because I sense that, the both of you sort of provide a lot of space to each other in terms of, one letting the other talk about the other or shine and so forth, doesn't it?
No, I don't think we give each other that much space. We don't have space to give each other that much space. We have our own jobs. You see, this is Joe's job. He is the speaker. It's his story. That's his job, to speak to you guys. And my job is the engine room.
Absolutely. I know. I see that.
Yeah. So that's we have pretty much defined roles within our operation.
Clearly, because that's teamwork right there. I can see it.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's we come as a pair. It's a we, and there's no I in we. There's no I in team. There's no I in we.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did so much traveling on my own.
Yeah.
And I think for 10 years, I was going around the world just traveling on my own, and I'd meet people, see things, do things, and you would then go back to your office or wherever you went back, even to your family, and you talk about it, and they really are not interested. interested, and yet so you've done some wonderful things, met some wonderful people, and it's good to share that.
Yeah.
I get more value out of sharing an experience with Julie, and I think that's where the compatibility is. You have to want to do it together, and want to do, because there are some difficult times together. There are some times when it's not working. When if Julie went ill or I go ill, we it's good then because you're together, but it's still it's still a difficult time when these things happen. But I just got so tired of traveling without somebody with me, and because when you're traveling, you've got plenty of downtime.
Yeah,
you fly in, you go to meetings, then you got to go to a hotel and have an evening meal and whatever.
yeah.
And it's those times when you don't want to be with somebody who's in the business.
Yeah.
Wherever you've gone to see, you want somebody you can just relax with and just enjoy being in a different place and seeing different places. And I found that traveling, I would see so many places that to have somebody with you, and then you can talk about it afterwards, and say, "Wow, that was incredible," or whatever it is. Or you can then share. I don't say a problem, but share an opportunity.
Yeah.
That an opportunity comes along, and then talk about it together, and you can make it so it's much better, and that is the compatibility, to be able to talk about what some people may think is mundane, like, well, this is a business opportunity. What should we do with this? How can we help these people? You've got to be compatible and share that space.
Well, I think I know for a fact that there is incredible India that I need to show both of you all around and ensure it's a great experience for you all. What does achievement mean to you?
Achievement? I think achievement means continuing to progress in life. I don't think it's always better to travel than arrive. So I don't think I've arrived. I've not got to the point where I just want to say, "Oh, that's it, shut the door, I've finished." I think it's traveling. It's continuing. And I'm talking about traveling through life, not so much just physically traveling, although we physically travel, but traveling in life and meeting different people, the experiences. And we met a few people. We've been talking earlier today about mind reading.
Mind mapping.
Mind mapping.
Yeah.
And so there's a person who's doing that, and they bring you into these different areas, and we're thinking, mind mapping, what's that? What's mind mapping? But we understand a bit more about that now. Yes.
Lovely.
and
Lovely to see you. Lovely to speak to both of you. How wonderful is it to have, witnessed times that you've actually taken things from where it was from scratch and actually built it from there. Thank you so much for being there with us, for sharing these anecdotes with us and your stories with us. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, and anytime.
Hopefully we'll see. Maybe
Yes.
we'll see you again in India. We hopefully
Yes.
we'll be able to come back.
Oh yes, we shall be in touch, and I'll look forward to seeing you.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Nice talking to you, and have a pleasant evening.